Hi, I'm Kathleen Wyman, author of Humorous Women's Fiction and one of the hosts of Author Events Author Talk series. And today I'm really happy that the author I'm talking to is Paige Toon, the best-selling author of 17 women's fiction books, 3 young adult books, a collection of short stories. And your books have sold more than 2 million copies worldwide, which is just fantastic. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. It's lovely to be able to chat.
Oh, it's so nice to talk to you too. Thank you for having
No.
me.
And it's looking very lovely and sunny where you are. I've got a very boring office
It's
background.
actually not that sunny out there, but yeah, there's a lot of light, so that's a good thing.
So you have written so many books, been so successful. Perhaps you could start off by telling us about how long you've been writing for and how you got started.
Well, I got my book deal back in 2006, September 2006. I was very, very lucky. I used to work at Heat magazine as a reviews editor, and so I knew different people in publishing, but I've wanted to write books since I was really young. Like it's the first job I ever wanted to do. And when I got the job at Heat, and just saw so many books coming in, and it made my heart sing because I just thought, I'm never gonna, how can I ever turn this small idea into 100,000 words? How could I possibly be good enough to have a book published or anything like that? And so for a few years, I just felt really quite down about it. And then, I just started writing my first novel. Got about 3 pages in and went for lunch with a friend who was also a publicist. And he said to me, "You should write a book, love. You'd get a book deal working at Heat magazine." And I said, "Well, I do have an idea." Anyway, he said, "So tell me." So I told him the idea for Lucy in the Sky, which didn't even have a title, but I just started writing it. And he said, "I love it. I'm going to go back and tell, the publisher." And 5 minutes after I got back from the office, there was an email from her saying, "Nigel's just told me your story. I'd love to meet you. How about we meet for breakfast next week?" And that weekend, it was like a fire had lit up underneath me. I wrote the first 3 chapters. I wrote a 5,000 word synopsis. My brother came up with the title Lucy in the Sky and had this meeting with Suzanne. And 2 days later, she offered me a 2 book deal.
Wow.
And Nigel said to me, he said, "I'd tell him you can write it by Christmas and have it out in April." And I don't know why, like considering how long I'd wanted to write a book. I was like in my early 30s, I think, at this time. And I had a full-time job. I'd never written a book, but anyway, I suggested this. She said, "Well, yes, we don't normally work to such tight deadlines, but we could probably do this." Um, and then I had I basically wrote my debut novel in 2.5 months with a full-time job, delivered it at Christmas, published in April. At Christmas, I fell pregnant. So I
There's
can
a
always,
lot going on.
yeah, I can basically always tell you how long I've been writing because I judge it by the age of my firstborn son. So he turns 18 in September. So yeah, I've been writing for almost 19 years.
That is such a lovely, lovely story. It doesn't happen like that very often, does it? But it's nice to know.
It doesn't. And I mean, it really was like one of the absolute happiest times of my life, like just I was doing my absolute dream job. And it's been my dream job ever since. Like I've loved every single book that I've written. I felt so lucky every single time. I always still write around the same time of year. I always still write in like September, October, November, December time. And every time September comes around and I start writing a new novel, I'm really happy. Yeah.
So it's that nice back to school feeling almost, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's after the summer holidays with the kids, and yeah, just sort of, yeah, exactly. Back to school, kind of ready to crack on.
So that means you're about to start writing right now.
I am.
I won't
I
ask you for any spoilers, but are you happy with your story, or how does it start? Do you get just a small idea which grows as you write, or do you have it
Yeah,
planned out?
exactly. I mean, sometimes I get like a really small idea, and over a few years, it suddenly turns into, or sometimes it combines with another small idea to become a whole story.
Yeah.
Other times, books just sort of like land in my head and they're almost fully finished. Like that was the case of Seven Summers. Like Seven Summers just came to me, and it was just within a week I had a full-blown story and it didn't change at all from that. So it just depends on the book. But this idea has come to me like this year. So it hasn't been anything that I've been thinking about for years, although I have always wanted to write a lead character who's a dancer, and she is a dancer, so
Mm.
that kind of works well for the book.
Well, I'm a massive Strictly fan, so I'm sold already. Where do you get your inspiration from?
It comes from anywhere, but often it will come from like a song lyric, or it might just be like one line, and it just sparks off a whole idea. Or it could be, like I might see something in a film and I really like the way it makes me feel, like it'll be a forbidden love story of some sort or an unrequited love, this sort of yearning and, all that kind of emotion that comes out because those are the stories I love writing the most. So it might, often it's like the idea is formed by an emotion that I want to feel myself when I'm writing, and then it's sort of, just explodes into a whole different idea from the initial inspiration, apart from Seven Summers, because that I did have an idea for Seven Summers before the proper idea sort of slammed in, but that was from a Taylor Swift lyric. I won't ask you to wait if you don't ask me to stay.
Oh,
From
that
Tinder
yeah,
MD.
that's amazing.
And I just thought, that's this idea that, she can't leave her hometown and he lives in LA, and, they kind of come together every summer. So yeah, it's like it's fun because I just feel really, really inspired by other things and then get to create my whole brand new story and live inside the heads of that characters. So it's kind of fan fiction at like a different level.
Does Taylor know? She should she should have done an endorsement for the book, couldn't she?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Do you ever like get the imposter syndrome thinking, oh God, where am I going to get my next idea from? Or are you so brimming with ideas that that's never an issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think once, not that long ago, I didn't have an idea that I was really, really loving. In that, in fact, that was the year that I came up with Seven Summers. So like, and Seven Summers is now my most favorite book, probably. So yeah, I just sort of it just wasn't fully clicking into place until I heard that Taylor Swift lyric and really sort of listened to that song, and then it all clicked into place within 5 days, and I was on my way. But normally I've always got. I mean, that year I still had four. I had four other ideas that I could have written, but um, it wasn't. There was nothing that was really, really like pushing me forward
Mm.
until Seven Summers. So yeah, no, I don't. I kind of think I'll always come up with ideas. Maybe I won't, but I've been really lucky so far, and yeah, just I think just because I love writing so much as well, that I'm kind of like always going to feel inspired, and
Yeah.
when an idea does come and sort of take the idea that I'm writing next, like I've already been thinking about the idea for the book after that, and I'm really excited to write that one. I haven't talked to my editors about it yet, so they might not like it. So I need to,
Got them all stockpiled up.
but yeah, it's
Ready to
really
dive
nice when you
in.
kind of have an idea that you're excited about well in advance, because then the idea just kind of I'll be thinking about it alongside the next one I'm writing, and
Yes.
yeah, it's awesome.
So do you do any writing? I mean, obviously you're doing all your edits and everything, but January to September, is that like the editing, book promotion, and I guess thinking up ready for the next September? Is that time that you take for that?
Yeah, well, when I moved to Penguin, I basically I changed my whole time frame of when I write. I moved to Penguin from Simon Schuster 4 years ago,
Yeah.
and even though I've been writing a book a year since 2006, I said to them, I'll still write the book, but let's not publish it until the year after, and then they might have a chance of selling to America, because America works on much tighter deadlines. So this sort of delivering in at the end of December and publishing in sort of April, May, sort of June time was not at all good, like for my career. Because there's just not enough time for the publisher to kind of really build buzz and stuff like that, or to try and sell to foreign rights and things, because America really likes to publish simultaneously. So that's what I've done this year. So I basically asked them if I could deliver at the end of January, just to give myself that little bit of extra time.
Yes.
The end of Jan, I write until then. Then we're editing, and they turn the edits around within 2 weeks. So I really don't get much of a break between, and I'm always like up against it. It always seems to come down to the last of 2, 3, 4 weeks when I'm writing most of the book in that amount of time. It
Yes.
just takes me so long to kind of really get into the swing of it. And then suddenly it just like the characters just burst into life inside my head, and, I
Yeah.
can't sort of write quick enough. So I might be writing, until midnight, and sometimes waking up at 5 a.m. and working again, for a couple of weeks. So then, yeah, so I'm exhausted. I have just only like less than 2 weeks off, and then I've got the edits back. And
Mm,
then it will be several rounds of editing.
yeah,
Like with my last publisher, we used to do like one round of editing and then move on. And because I've got more time and I've got two editors, an American editor now and a British one. And so we really take our time to get the best possible book that we can, which I love, but it gives me more time with the editing. So I actually have only just recently sort of finished the editing for the book that comes out in April.
yeah.
Um, so I've been working all this time, and now I'm going to have I've still got to do the page proofs and the American copy edit and stuff. So I'll be doing that in September, but then I'm going to, so yeah, so there's no real break.
Yeah.
Basically,
When you
I
actually
take
finish the
summer
book, that's
holiday.
just kind of like finish stage one.
Yeah,
The like
exactly.
the end isn't really the end.
No, yeah, I mean, it does effectively take almost a whole year from the time I start the book. In fact, it does. It takes a whole year from the time I start the book to the time the book is pretty much signed off in terms of editing and copy editing and everything else you have
Yeah,
to do,
yeah.
page proof. So, yeah, and then I'll be on to the next one. So,
Yes, constantly on deadline, basically.
yeah, basically.
Just as where you love it.
Yeah, yes.
There's no letter. What have been your biggest challenges in your writing career, and how have you overcome them?
Hmm. Um, I mean, I've been really lucky that I haven't suffered much with a writer's book, but in the earlier stages of the book, it always takes ages to get away. I like to sort of really take off, and I can reach a point where I'm like absolutely like panicking, thinking, "Oh my God, my deadline's approaching. I've still got so many words to write."
Mm,
But then I've just found that in the last sort of 3 years, 4 years, that I mean, I can write so many words in such a short amount of time. And I think so now I just sort of, that's kind of is a challenge that I've sort of overcome a little bit. Like I still will feel that level of panic. Oh my God, what if it doesn't come? What if my
yeah,
mind doesn't unlock? Next time I'm definitely going to write more words before I get to this last month. I always sort of tell myself to do that. But on the whole, I've had it's been a pretty smooth sailing, I think. So in terms of challenges, I haven't had too many big ones, I don't think, to overcome. Obviously, if there's stuff going on in the background,
mm,
life, it's sort of hard to switch off sometimes. Writing books when I had tiny children, like I've literally written a book a year since my
yes.
babies, I've had two children now, and so I used to write during baby nap times. I had my second book was due when I had I was pregnant with a baby and I just really didn't love the first 50,000 words that I'd written before I really wanted to write the whole book because I'd written the last book in 2.5 months. And I was like, I'll write it before the baby comes. And no, it wasn't unlocking. I wasn't happy with what I was writing. And a friend of mine said, you know what, small babies, they sleep a lot. You'll get it done.
Yeah.
And she was right. Like after sort of 6 weeks after my son was born, I came back to Johnny Be Good, ended up shredding pretty much the first, 50,000, rewriting them all, delivering, 6 weeks later. It was kind of, so it's been stuff like that, but
Mm.
still having to work when I had friends who were on maternity leave who were just going out for nice coffees and stuff. And I'm like, my baby's asleep. I've got to work.
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, we used to write when they were asleep. But yeah, it's amazing how much they do sleep when they're tiny. When
Yeah.
the naps drop, you're like, oh no, I'm gonna sleep now. Johnny Be Good was the first book of yours that I bought actually.
Oh, really? Oh, you've been with me for a very long time then.
Huge fan.
Oh, thank you.
Um, what writing tips do you have for other authors, be they new or like me, been going for a while and always up for learning new tips?
Oh, I'm not sure I can teach anyone anything that they don't already know, but I mean, like, things that I always say to readers who ask me are, write what you love, not what you think you should. Never try to write for an audience or what's commercial or anything like that because you just won't love it enough. And,
Mm,
I only want to read I mean, I only really want to read books that have got heart and soul poured into them and, like have all the emotions and stuff, and I just don't think you can fake that very easily. So I think unless you're really feeling it, um, don't sort of write it, or sort of just take some time out and go for a walk and listen to music and, go to see a film, be inspired again, come back to it, read another book, like
yeah, listen to
a
the
lot of
Taylor.
people, hey?
Listen to some Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. Good lyricists. But like when I first started writing, I stopped reading. I stopped reading. I pretty much stopped reading, like full stop, but I certainly stopped reading romance because like my favorite authors were like Marianne Keyes and Lisa Jewell and I just knew that I would have complete imposter syndrome. Like I knew that I wasn't as good a writer as they were, and I was just terrified of like just it of the fear. I mean, now I also know that no, I don't sound like anyone else and nobody else sounds like me. So, that's the whole point is that you've got a different voice and, a different style of writing. And there will always be readers who come on board for what you do. You might not have as many readers, but like you just have to be true to yourself and, get write the books that really kind of connect with you and, the style that, you should be. Um, so yeah, that's probably
Million copies sold worldwide is too shabby. I think you're doing okay. Um, so Lisa Jewell, you mentioned her. So of course she was in romance, and now she does psychological thrillers. Are you ever tempted to swap genre?
I would never swap genre, like, but I have had ideas for like sort of dystopian romance. Like I love romance. I don't think you'll ever get me writing anything that's not romance. Like I want to write the books that make me feel. And the feelings that I want to feel are butterflies and falling in love and kind of laughing and joy and tears and grief and kind of like, oh my God, what if it doesn't work out? That's what I want to feel. So I don't want to feel scared.
No.
I don't want to like write like the crime or anything like that. That's not, I don't want my heart to be racing in kind of fear as I'm writing. I don't know, like that just doesn't appeal to me. So whatever I write, I'm pretty sure will always be romance. It will always like have some sort of level of kind of unrequited or forbidden love. But I love romantasy and I love sort of like dystopian set romances, and there's just so much scope for keeping your characters apart when it's outside of the realm of
Yeah.
kind of reality. And so I do have ideas that I'd love to write one day, but we'll see. Like I'm at the moment I'm just focusing on
Yeah.
my brand, seeing where we go with that.
Yes.
And yeah, maybe one day if I sort of like really take off, then I might be like, oh, you know what, now it's time for me to do just to try something different. But
Yes.
I don't think I'll ever sort of stray for
No.
good. It might just be like a one-off book or something, or a
Yes.
series. Yeah.
Well, so you're the perfect author, of course, to be appearing at Bournemouth's Romance Writing Festival, which is October, and you're in conversation with Millie Johnson.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to chatting to her about?
Oh God. So Millie and I have known each other since like we both got published around the same time at Simon and Schuster. So back in 2007. So I've known Millie for so long. Every time I get together with her, we just have such a blast. And she's so much fun on stage. Like she's just, the things that she'll come out with, she's just hilarious. So it's always a fun conversation. So I have no idea what we're going to chat about, but guaranteed it's going to be fun. Like she will crack me up. We did an event back in April, and I don't know, she made some sort of comment about gnomes or sort of like oh, I can't even remember what it was, but it was hilarious. Like the whole audience was just like in stitches. So, yeah.
I
Who
need
knows
to
what
know
that's
this
going.
gnome story now.
I'm pretty sure it was like about sexy gnomes as well. Like it was like I
Well, I've
don't
got
know.
Millie's number. I'm going to be messaging her after this.
There'll be readers that remember.
Oh, if anyone hasn't got their tickets yet, then please go to the Romance Writing Festival and get them because then you'll get to see Paige and Millie, and who knows what other stories will be coming out then.
Yeah, and we'll also, like, I mean, bring along your books for me to sign. Like, I'm happy to sign any books that you bring. It's a really lovely thing. Like, we could take pictures and just chat and stuff. So it should be a really, really nice event, just to be able to meet readers and also I've had so many readers over the years ask me to come to Bournemouth, so and the South Coast. So here I am.
It's Bournemouth. It's
I'm
really,
on
really nice.
the
Yeah.
way. Yeah, lovely.
Well, it's perfect setting, of course, the seaside for a romance. How important are the settings and locations to your books?
Oh, I think that's so important. I mean, to be honest, I think a lot of my stories, you could pick them up and you could put them anywhere. Like
Yeah.
there aren't too many that are like have to be set in that specific location. Like most of them, you could pick them up and move them to a different location. But, my settings are, I think, characters in like amongst themselves, like they really are
Mm.
very, very, very real, and I tend to go to the places that I write about. So I'm sitting there imagining what the characters would be doing in that specific spot,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love writing about sort of, real restaurants and things like that and bars and things, just so the readers can go there themselves. And I'll always think about those characters, like I live in Cambridge, and every time I cross over the bridge or go near, sort of like King's College or Trinity, I'm always thinking of like One Perfect Summer and Alice and Joe and, stuff like that. So yeah, like my characters they live with me wherever I go.
Yeah. So your most recent book, What If I Never Get Over You, came out in April, and that's such a romantic title. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, well, this is Ellie and Ash's story, and they meet when they're interrailing in Lisbon. And she's actually on the verge of quitting, like she's feeling really, really lonely. And then this hot backpacker sits down opposite her on this rooftop hostel, and this beautiful sort of like incredible city. And they end up chatting, going out for dinner, then they hang out together, and they find there are sort of just some things that they really bond over, and like they sort of there's a shared experience that they both had, which has made them both sort of shape them and made them who they are, and it's very really quite sad. um but they have this most perfect time, 3 days, and then she decides she's going to carry on interrailing. She's going to go and see her parents, and then they're going to meet up because he's gone and she's already they've kind of like come, she came along the top and he came down along the bottom, so they're going to meet in Madrid. And she's late and he never shows up, but like they had the most incredible 3 days. She can't stop thinking about him, and then 6 years later she has basically changed the course of her life, partly inspired by him. She gets this job, this beautiful estate in Wales on the sort of English border, for this sort of aristocratic family. And he basically comes back into her life in a way that you'd never expect. So it's kind of like it's told over different parts, when they sort of come together, and like, yeah, that it was a really very romantic story, and again a bit of a unrequited, like there's a few different complications and things throughout it, but yeah, the sort of books I love
Yes.
writing.
Well, the true love shouldn't run smoothly, should it? You've got to have a few challenges.
That's right, yeah, they
Oh,
definitely have
yeah,
those, yeah.
yeah. Sounds absolutely brilliant. And where can people find you, subscribe to your newsletter or follow you on socials?
Well, I'm on my website is paigetoon.com, so there's loads of information there, and I'm on pretty much every like social media under @PaigeToonAuthor. So Instagram's where I'm on the most,
Yeah.
and I'm on TikTok a little bit more now, these days, but Instagram is just one that has kind of taken off a little bit more for me, and I sort of spend more of my time over there just to make sure I'm on top of messages and things. So unfortunately, poor old Facebook and X, kind of they get a little bit lost,
Well,
and
you
it
can't do them all. I'm impressed by the TikTok. That just petrifies me.
Oh, I mean, like I'm not doing any of those. I can't be doing any of the sort of like proper TikToks and like the funny ones that other people do, but it's
Yeah.
just I'm there, and I'll post about books or whatever, and occasionally sort of like do a little, video where I'm talking to camera, but not too many of those.
Fantastic. Right. Well, thank you so much. Have a brilliant time at the Romance Writing Festival.
Thank you so much.
Everyone is in for a treat. Come and see you and Millie. And it was really nice chatting to you. And good luck with the new book that you're about to
Thank
start. I
you
can't wait
so
to read
much.
that one either.
I hope to see you
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.